just when the focus is completely on the football team and everybody's getting ready for Richmond in a few weeks and the excitement about the on-field product can hardly be sustained among hardcore Washington football team fans, poof, we got off the field news. This is the Washington Football Talk podcast, and we're going to dive into it next.
Whether buying your first home, refinancing, or renovating, McLean Mortgage understands that financing a home is a significant part of your life. They stand ready to help guide you smoothly along the exciting journey to home ownership. McLean Mortgage is committed to being your trusted mortgage advisor for life. Visit McLeanMortgage.com today. McLean Mortgage Corporation, NMLS 99665.
What up, everybody? It's JP Finley. It's Mitch Tischler. It's Pete Haley. We're brought to you by Oarsman Automotive of Virginia. We ride with them. Want you to do the exact same thing. Check them out online, oarsmanva.com. 6 locations all over Northern Virginia. And voila, just like that, the Washington football team has a new co-CEO. Pete, can you guess who it is?
I'm going to just throw a dart and say it's Tanya Snyder from what I've been reading on the internet today.
Ding, 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 ding. Well done, Peter.
Thank you.
So we have a long interview, and I wanted to get Rick Snyder on this particularly.
No relation.
No, S-N-I-D-E-R,
Yep.
S-N-Y-D-E-R. But Rick has been covering this football team for Pete's whole life, probably. Like every journalist of that era will tell you Rick was probably closest with Jack Kent Cooke. Rick has a deep fundamental understanding of ownership in the NFL and what this all means. So we have a really good Rick Snyder interview coming up. My last question for Rick, I want to ask both of you guys, and then I'll answer it. When you saw the Wall Street Journal story this morning and then the press release that Tanya Snyder has been named co-CEO with Dan, what was your reaction? Mitch, you start first.
My first reaction was it felt kind of overdue. I guess I was surprised to see it come out when it did, but then you think about the other balls that are in the air as far as this team is concerned, and maybe there's a correlation there. But let's not forget how much Tanya Snyder has done behind the scenes with his team, between the charitable foundation, the Think Pink. I mean, JP, you and I were down, I believe it was in Orlando for the owners' meetings when she presented the Think Pink initiative to the rest of the ownership, the rest of the owners that were there. And she stood up there representing the Washington football team individually. You know, Dan Snyder wasn't a part of it. So she's really been kind of intimately involved in a lot of things over the years. And she's been involved in a lot of the good things this organization has done off the field. So when I first saw it, I thought it was great for her. I think, you know, it's well-deserved, long time coming. I just hate that it's kind of shrouded in this mystery of, you know, when the other shoe is going to drop.
Yeah, I hate to be a skeptical eye roll guy, but when I got the email, saw the Wall Street Journal story, and eventually Michael Phillips sent me a PDF because I don't have a login for the website. It's a lot of eye rolls and sighing just because, you know, in an ordinary organization, this is a cool story, but with this organization, you're immediately thinking, okay, this is for them to get ahead of something else, and I think we all know what the something else is. So, you know, disappointing isn't right, because congratulations to Tanya. Anytime you can get CEO in your title, it's a big deal, regardless of who you are and what you're doing. But I think in the end, we all know that this good news is soon going to be canceled out by far worse news.
So I feel like we're dancing a little bit. Let's address things. The far worse news that perhaps Pete is alluding to is we don't know what's going to happen with the Wilkinson report. And on February 4th, Roger Goodell said that we expect to hear soon and we should have resolution shortly. And that was 145 days ago. Timestamp today is June 29th at 4:20 p.m. I think, to Mitch's point, Tanya being named co-CEO is a no-brainer, nothing move. I mean, in some capacity, I would think she basically already serves as that. Like my wife is kind of co-CEO of my life. You know what I mean? Like that's a marriage, right?
She's not co-CEO. Your wife is the CEO of your life.
Good point. But
you're just a CFO.
I don't know if I'm that either. I think Tanya Snyder has raised millions of dollars, probably tens of millions of dollars. I don't know the number, for breast cancer research and awareness. A super classy woman. I've interviewed her, met her a handful of times, maybe, I don't know, more than a handful of times. Always been pleasant. And I think that decision in a vacuum makes all the sense in the world. unfortunately, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. I mean, you've owned the team for 21 years. Why are you doing it now? And why are you doing it now when typically, and Rick Snyder will explain this more, 4th of July weekend is when S hits the fan. So it just seems a little transparent, which is unfortunate. And perhaps nothing is coming, and this is just the right time to do it. But it continues this reorganization by Dan Snyder to completely rebuild his team. And in the article in the Wall Street Journal, which totally makes sense, the Wall Street Journal is serving Washington football team fans. That totally makes sense. But in that article, the desire to build the most diverse and inclusive team in pro sports, he's doing that. You hire Jason Wright, you hire Julie Donaldson, you hire Julie Jensen. You make a lot of really Jennifer King, a lot of admirable moves. And I do think it's important to point out, and I actually wrote this down because I didn't want to forget saying it, that it's easy to be cynical. I think we're past skeptical when it comes to Dan Snyder and his ownership of the Washington football team. We're in cynical territory. And it's easy to be cynical based on everything that's happened and combine that with the complete lack of success on the football field. If this team was in the NFC title game 3 years ago, I think all of this is different. If this team had just gone 12-4, I think we're having different conversations. But unfortunately, in this town, the business ops matter because they've stunk, and there's been nonstop churn in the business operations side. Like, as much as I believe in Jason Wright and the new organizational structure, they just did this. They just hired 1 million new people and Brian Lafemina and his crew, and then fired them 10 months later. So, like, I don't even ask for forgiveness on the skepticism. Like, it's earned. But all of that said, whether it's forced or not, it's hard to argue with the moves Dan has made. All right, let's not delay anymore. Let's get to our interview with Rick Snyder.
The Podium, an Olympic podcast from NBC, will bring you deep into the stories and events that have defined the game's past and will define the Tokyo Games. But we'll also give you an intimate look into the unseen details that only the athletes themselves can tell.
I'm sitting in these giant inflated boots that come up your butt.
My grandma tends to hoard the medals and the trophies.
That's something that will just automatically get you stopped by airport security is, what's in your bag? Oh, it's a gold medal.
Tune in for weekly episodes wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, it is a big pleasure to bring in one of the longest standing veteran Washington football team journalists in this city, Mr. Rick Snyder. You can read his work now on the 1067 The Fan website, but his work has been everywhere over the years, worked for the Washington Times damn near as long as I can remember. Rick, thank you so much. I'll be honest, one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you directly is I think there's a handful of people that are absolutely cut to the chase, see right through all of the bullshit. And I think you're probably at the top of the list. And I think with some of this ownership news, there's a lot of padding on top, I'll say. Here's my first question for you. Why do you think now, July or June 29th, 2021, after owning the team for more than 20 years, Dan Snyder has decided to add his wife, Tanya, as co-CEO?
Well, and for that 20 years now, I'll let you say exactly what you think is happening. I mean, you had 20 years to do this and you didn't. So the quietest time of the year on the NFL schedule is the 4th of July time because everyone's on vacation. Everybody involved in the NFL, everyone. So that's when you drop anything bad. And it's always 4:30 on a Friday before a major holiday so that everybody gets distracted. I mean, it's a classic thing. And we're waiting for this NFL report forever, which Tagliabue said, not Tagliabue, I'm sorry. The NFL commissioner now said, hey, it's going to be out soon. And that was 6 months ago. I think it's going to come out this week. I was thinking it was going to be like a fine, but Dan Snyder making this move makes it seem more obvious that it's going to be a suspension, which may be warranted, but this way it keeps it in the family. How long that suspension is, I don't know. It might be a little lengthy if you're doing this. I mean, if it was a month, I don't see it. It could be longer. So I think Snyder's setting it up to where maybe he's still kind of in control because, I mean, this is a spouse, and I don't want to disparage her. But let's be honest, we see what this is.
Yeah, I mean, let's be like, all my interactions with Tanya have been pleasant. I've interviewed her. I mean, Mitch, how many times have we interviewed her? It's got to be maybe 10. Like it's with some regularity we get to speak to her. It's generally surrounding the philanthropic events and the Think Pink initiative she put together, which has raised millions of dollars for breast cancer awareness.
I mean, it's a league-wide initiative that she kind of conjured up on her own. So like she does have, yeah.
I think you can make an argument that if we thought she was going to be the CEO and making the decisions going forward, that it's a good step for the Washington football team. I just don't know. I want to ask you a couple things about specifically how the Wall Street Journal was randomly getting all this news, Rick. But do you buy that Dan Snyder is a changed man?
No. Why would he be a changed man? I mean, he's changed the people around him. And there's been a lot of great things that they've done. They got rid of Bruce. They got rid of some of this culture stuff that's going on. They got rid of some people, obviously did bad things. But this thing about Dan Snyder was there, 29 times over so many years. I don't know if I didn't count them, but I don't think that's true.
They said from 2012 to 2019, he was there 29 times.
Yeah, sure.
I've been there from 2012 to 2019, and I would take the over. I can't count it because I can't go back in time. But if those odds were offered by Gambit DC, I would take the over.
I can tell you in 2012 with RG3 being there, he was there often.
Well, yeah, in the early days when Snyder bought the team, he was there every day wearing a suit and tie on the sidelines. And then he slipped into Redskin gear at one point, and then we didn't see him as much. And I know that a lot of the business staff is really relocating over to the stadium. So you won't see them at the park as much. Because Jack Kent Cooke had his whole business staff in Middleburg, and yet he was there more than 29 times over 7 years. I can tell you that. He came most days. But, that's all nonsense. And as far as the Wall Street Journal, Snyder's got New York PR types handling things, and I'm sure they have the connections there. And you're looking for a safe harbor to kind of bring him out. They rarely have ever let Snyder get in front of people like us who just said, have it. They're too afraid of that, right. Because that's what we will have at it.
Me and Lavero aren't on each other's Christmas card list, but he had a tweet today that just called that story chicken, and I thought it was a pretty good tweet, Tom.
Yeah, I thought it was off. It was a friendly harbor, to say the least. And, they've rarely ever allowed him not to be that way. And I can tell you it happened maybe the first year or so of Snyder's. He actually walked out on the field during halftime to do some introduction or something. And people booed him off that field. And he's never come back in public sight since. He just doesn't. I'd love to talk to him about some things that aren't attacking, like, the stadium, or where are you at on the sports betting, or is the new place going to have a dome? There's plenty of confrontational subjects, but he has never allowed himself to do that. He's too afraid of what can happen.
Well, let me ask you this. You talked about not buying Dan Snyder changing in terms of the way that he's gone about being the owner. Are you buying these changes inside the organization, the bringing in of Ron Rivera and the bringing in of Jason Wright and Joy Donaldson and all these different faces who can potentially help mold the direction of the franchise?
Well, I think all that was great moves, and I think Dan Snyder did it because he had to do it. And now he's picked some good people. I think these are a lot of real positive moves. I think this team could actually be a Super Bowl contender in a year. And they made a lot of great moves. And I know, listen, the fans aren't stupid. There's a lot of reasons why fans have dropped off of this team. And it was how it was being run and all those kind of things. You had to make these kind of moves. You had to get rid of Bruce. You had to do these things. But he didn't want to, but he did. So, at this point, I don't know. He's now got complete control again. I don't know why he just doesn't sell, unless I think the reason he wouldn't sell is you want to see what the gambling money is going to be like in the NFL. How much is that going to raise your value? That's how Snyder got lucky and got the team. He came in right before the major changes of the TV contract and the new stadium kind of thing. And that's when the money went boom. He got there at the right time. And then maybe you don't want to sell until 2027 because that's when, boom, more of the gambling money, your new stadium and all that come along. So now it's best to sit tight and wait.
See, I don't think he's ever going to sell, dude. I think this is his life's work and wants to prove he can win. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but he could sell it now for $5 billion, $4.5. I don't think he would. I could be wrong on that. I don't think he will ever sell. And I don't think he's ever going to be forced to sell either. Peter, I interrupted you. Sorry, pal.
Well, if they don't do it now, if the NFL feels they have something that they can suspend them with, if they don't force a sale now, they never will. I mean, if it's that serious to suspend somebody, if they're going to do that, why wouldn't you keep going? You know, the NFL, Dan doesn't have a lot of friends in the NFL. He's never served on the big committees. He's never done a lot of the hard work with the other owners. The owners got mad at him for paying Spurrier $5 million when they had to raise all their coaching salaries. Ooh, there was a big rift over that one. Things like that. So
when they got hit with the fine from the NFL, they didn't fine all the other teams. I think you're totally right. I think the reason there's no look to boot him from the league is just there might be some glass houses out there, and people don't want to start throwing stones as far as removing an owner.
Oh, absolutely. They don't like to get into other people's business. Al Davis would just taunt them all the time. You know, Al Davis just basically go F you, you know, to all these guys in the room, and they still had to do business and never made a move against him. And they maybe could have on his relocations. So I think Snyder will sell this team, but I don't think it's anytime soon.
So you use the word serious when talking about a suspension, but does a suspension change, you know, Snyder or how Snyder is viewed in other people's eyes? If the owner's already so far gone with him and he's already pretty much, you know, despised by a lot of fans, would a suspension just, you know, go away for a couple of months, come back, and then just keep doing things? Or is there anything that would change because of that, do you think?
I don't think anything really changes. I think you serve your time and he comes back. I don't think the other owners spend time worrying about what he's up to. And as far as the fans, winning does everything, man. You can do whatever you want when you win. Some of those old teams of Gibbs that won all the time, the crazy things the players would do at times. Today, we'd be like, woo. Back then, nobody cared. Nobody cared at all because they won. And winning, when I talk to hundreds, and I bet I've had this conversation hundreds of times in the last 10 years, why did you give up your season tickets? We can go talk about all the things. But my bottom line is, if they're going to the Super Bowl this year, would you keep your tickets? And they always go, oh, yeah. Then it's not about anything but winning and losing.
Totally agree.
Quick rabbit hole. What's the best player story you got from the Gibbs Super Bowl teams that would make us go, yee, today?
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about any of those things. You know, I mean, it's just craziness. They do, you know, you've heard the Rigo stories and all those kind of crazy things. And they went on all the time. I don't know. I don't think I can talk about those, Mitch.
Hey, when did you first start covering the team?
83 was my first season, just kind of dropping in. And then 87, I did a bit because the strike team went on in 87. And Jacoby and Bostic threatened our beat reporter, which was Marty Herney. If you talk to the Scab players, we'll no longer talk to you. So Marty grabbed me off of the racetrack beat at the time and said, hey, you come over here. Nobody knows you. And I did that. And then I stayed with them some because they went to the Super Bowl. And, you know, it's been off and on. But every day kind of grinding was more like 93.
What's Marty Herney like? What's your relationship with him like?
I haven't talked to Marty in a while, but, you know, Marty's always a kind of a nervous guy that moves on quickly. Even when we worked at the same paper together, you know, you talk to Marty for a minute and he's in motion. You know, he's always, and I saw when he came back here, he took the position of, I want to be on the road scout. And he wasn't worried about the general manager title. And I've talked to some mutual friends about this because I haven't been able to reach Marty. You know, Marty's so secret that when he was the Carolina GM, they were on a coaching search and I needed to talk to Marty about something. He wouldn't answer my calls. So I pick up the Redskin Park house phone and dial him, and he picks right up. And I'm like, you SOB, you answer my phone call. You know, I tricked him into thinking it was the Redskins calling him. That's how crazy Marty can be at times. So you're getting nothing. If I get a scoop, it ain't from Marty. I'll tell you that much.
That might be why Ron likes him so much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he knows you take him, and he has his loyalty to that. But Marty's always been a very close to the vest kind of guy. And he knows all, but he ain't telling all.
Well, you must have covered Mayhew too then when he was playing here.
A little bit. You know, I didn't know Marty as well there, but I'll say one thing about Herney. Herney turns out one night, the woman copy editor at the Times desk says, I'm getting married. And we're like, to who? He goes, Marty Herney. And we're like, you're dating Marty Herney? This is on the desk. And we don't know that the two of them are dating. And, you know, and they got married and left. That's how close Marty is to keeping the secret.
What kind of investigative journalists are you guys?
It's funny. Everybody on the desk said we knew she was talking to her boyfriend. We had no idea it was Marty. And I'll tell you a funny story about Marty. Jeannie was her name. Jeannie bawled him out about a deadline story. So Marty said, "You think you can do it? Come with me." And he made her cover a basketball game on deadline, and she blew deadline, and that was the end of shutting her up. Because you know how desk editors are. They always think, why can't you do the impossible? And Marty got her quiet for that 5 minutes, but she was a good copy editor. I had her too. But,
JP, that sounds a lot like Mitch to us. So he thinks he can write and do headlines. I think if he ever tried, his head would explode.
Well, you know how it is. They want you to have a gamer in the moment the game ends, and sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. I mean, it gets crazy. When Drew Nicholas hit that half-court shot against Carolina at 1 a.m. in the tournament, man, that was a nightmare come true.
I was bartending that night. I remember that well. Let me ask you this. I was texting with somebody close to the situation this morning, and I said, you know what? If you guys were able to get that story put into the Wall Street Journal, maybe you'll actually pull off this new stadium in DC, because I think you're starting to move some mountains. What do you think the chances are of getting back? I'm not even saying RFK anymore. I'm just saying getting back into DC.
But there's the thing. Where are you going to DC if it's not RFK? Where's the land? There isn't.
East of the river.
The last stadium search, which I covered, it seems like I get away from these subjects, in the 90s, the only place other than DC they liked was either New York Avenue, which is now a big federal government complex, and they liked Nats Park area, which is now a baseball stadium. So that was their other B and C spots. So it's really RFK or nothing. And RFK, as I've talked to you before, they've lost the right-hand side of land for development. That's going for housing. And that's being approved now by the city council. So it's got to be RFK. As far as whether they will be, I'm still standing on my Oxon Cove pick, which is across from the MGM down by the Wilson Bridge. I still think that's where it is. I don't believe the Virginia thing. I think Loudoun County is a stupid idea. It's too far out. Look at what America's doing. We're still migrating to cities. You can't think about 2027. You have to think about 2057. What's going on there? And Americans are going back into the cities and mass transit. And so Loudoun, forget Loudoun. Somebody said, Prince William, are you kidding me? Prince William. Oh, we just go to Atlanta. I still think it's PG County.
So I agree with you. And I actually talked to one of the guys that runs MGM National Harbor, and they are publicly supporting a stadium in Oxon Cove. I bet they could build a cool little tunnel underneath the Beltway. They'd take care of all that, I'm sure. What about the land across the river from Nats Park? It's like parkland. I understand that might not be easy to give up, but economic development across the river is the only place that is stalled in the district.
But there's a big commission that's overseeing a growth plan over there too. They've got lots of plans for that over there, and they're in motion now. So that land's not really up for grabs. The land is that RFK still has to be approved that's federal parkland too. And the DC lease on it will end like in 10 years from now, something like that. So that's not easy to get. And the Oxon Cove land, turns out, I didn't know this living here all my life. I've lived in that area. I walked that farm that's there in the 1960s. So I know the land. It turns out that's a federal land, not a state land. The state went to the Interior Department last year before, and said, we'll swap you, this Western Maryland land for this land. Happens all the time. And the president, who didn't like the Maryland governor, said no. Well, now we've switched, presidents and all. Maybe they'd be more inclined to make that move. But that's why it didn't work before.
I will say that DC United Stadium came together real quickly over in that area. And obviously football would need a bigger footprint, especially with them wanting to build all the accoutrement that goes with it in terms of, mall-ish area and stuff like that. So it is interesting to think about the different options, but you're right. There are only a couple. The one long shot, and JP and Peter are going to roll their eyes.
Don't even waste our time.
I hate it. What if they blow up Tyson's Corner and turn that into the stadium? Buy Tyson's, turn it into the stadium. They can have all of the mall, all the extra land they want to build, all the other stuff. It's got the most in and out points for traffic. It's got mass transit. It's a perfect spot for it.
What would the land acquisition cost, though? That's the biggest key. I agree with you on as far as people getting there and all. All right, it's really not a bad idea.
The traffic's god awful every night.
Land acquisition costs would be $1 trillion or something.
Thank you for being a voice of reason. If you want an old mall site, go to White Flint in Rockville. Nothing's there. It's empty. But it's not.
We got the mall right across from FedEx Field.
Right. No. Well, and that's part of what the Landover complex. There's talk about building by FedEx, and he wants to create, a Danny World, like Jerry World and all. But the problem that they have is that land is one big up and down hill more than anything, and it doesn't flow to be a central area because of that. So I don't think that's going to happen over there. So yeah, I think I stay on Oxen Cove. I just don't know. You can argue, and Virginia's getting a new governor that's pro Washington. Redskins come, football team coming, so they could maybe make another bid. I'm sure at training camp, this is going to come out of your mouth about the Virginia governor came by today wanting to talk about a stadium. They're there 4 days. That'll be the first or second day.
I'm a big fan of the Rick Snyder's Washington series on Twitter. Be sure to find that. They're 2-minute clips every day, covers all types of things. And you recently talked about your favorite helmets in burgundy and gold history. That's kind of a hot topic these days because the NFL waived that rule and will let teams wear alternate helmets. So give us some of your favorites. And do you think any of them can be worn by this organization moving forward? I would assume no, but I haven't watched your video. So give me your thoughts.
Probably not because of the feather. I love the Spear helmet they wore for like 3 years in the 60s. It does have a feather on it, but you could airbrush that out. But in the Spear, if they become the Warriors, which I don't think they will, but that would fit. I like that. The one Lombardi designed in 69, it came out in 70, 71. He had already died, but he ripped off the Green Bay and who ripped off Cleveland for that letter and the stripe in the middle and all. And it was yellow. It was a yellow helmet. It's kind of like, wow. But I like that a little bit. Everybody likes the one that they won 3 Super Bowls with, but they can't have that either because of the Indian symbol. So we get Sammy Ball's leather helmets out. That'd be kind of cool.
Cleveland used to have a logo on their helmet.
Who? Which one?
You said Green Bay ripped that off from the Browns. Haven't the Browns always been logoless?
Oh, they had the stripe though.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So everybody steals from everybody, but Lombardi did it twice. And he had the jerseys even one year. We yelled about Zorn being maroon and black. Lombardi's brother-in-law was the equipment manager he switched the jerseys over to, kind of make some money in the family. And it was the wrong color, but they came the night before. Couldn't do anything about it. Now you're like, that one. So they're a little off color.
I love that one. What do you think the name becomes?
I don't know. I wish they could name it Amazon Stadium. We were laughing. And we'll do Welcome to the Jungle instead of Hail the Redskins. Wouldn't that be awesome? And have the Wolves yelling. I think the Wolves, the Washington football team ruling by the Trademark Commission was really interesting because if you don't really care about that name and you weren't going to use it, why would you really fight for it if they appeal? Unless you just don't want somebody else to use it. I think if they win in the playoffs this year, you may be stuck with that name because now you'd be 2 for 2 playoffs with that name. And it's not the worst name. Nobody's going to be happy about anything. I like the Wolves personally. I think they make people howl in the stands anyway. Why not? Could do that. NC State, you get down there for a game, the way that Wolfpack yell is, it's pretty awesome.
I'll push back on the football team thing. Like, who cares if they make the playoffs twice when they're called the football team? Are we superstitious? Are we worried about ruining the mojo? Or like, what? Why would that be a reason to keep the name?
Oh, fans absolutely believe that they would be superstitious enough to say keep it. Oh, absolutely. I'd rather see the FC because this is also called Federal City when the city was open, not Washington. That predates. We didn't name it Washington until George died. So we could be the Federal City, you'd be FC. But, they might become a state eventually, and then we'd be, Douglas Commonwealth.
I imagine you can get that nugget and more on the Rick Snyder pizza and history tours through DC, right?
Yeah, we're probably not going to do them until in September. I've got a big group coming. There's a lot of people coming from England for the season opener. They're coming because then there's a Thursday home game. So there's a bunch of people coming get 2 once. Yeah. So I have a big group in Georgetown for that. So like when you guys went to England and had your whole following. I'm bringing them over here.
Do you have a favorite pizza in the city?
I like the Cuban at Pi's, P-I, which is 9th Street and F, down not far from the arena. That's a really good one. I think, there's a Detroit style pizza at a place called Red Line around 15th and N. That's really a good one. They have like pierogi pizza and all kind of stuff. I haven't tried. There's a guy doing sourdough pizza. I haven't been able to get there yet because of the pandemic, but I'm going to get there. That sounds really interesting. So, I like pizza in all forms best I can, but there's a lot of that. I eat 7-Eleven pizza once in a while, but, which is really bad. But, it's people love talking pizza, on my feed. I talk about football and pizza basically, and everybody likes it. But the Detroit style, which is to put the sauce on top or weird stuff, that's pretty cool. Pies is a really good restaurant for that.
All right. Last one for me. Rick Snyder has been doing journalism in this city 40 years?
43. When Boz retires, I am the longest running guy.
All right.
Let's go.
So Snyder sees that you see that Wall Street Journal story this morning and followed by the press release, whatever that was, 45 minutes later. What's your initial reaction?
Oh, I thought big deal. I mean, to be honest, I just thought this is really not a big story because, we all see that. I can't believe that she'll be the new voice of the Redskins and countering him. I think it's a placeholder thing. And, I don't want to disparage her because I've had no problems with her a few times we've met. I'm sure she's a smart person and all. But I just thought, so what? They're just moving the wheels around here. Somebody else in the family's running it until he gets back. And will they not talk about this team if he's suspended? I mean, seriously, anybody believe that? I don't think so. I mean, sorry, you passed the P's. I can't talk about the team. Come on, man. So I just thought big deal, and the Wall Street Journal can write that kind of story if they want. I just thought it was so unbalanced on that. And, they don't talk to the Post because the Post has really been beating up on them lately. And just like I used to at the Times. I mean, he always plays favorites out of town. But I didn't think it was a big deal to read it.
Thank you. Remember Bruce Allen would always go on that Nashville radio station?
Yeah. I mean, Vinny Serrato had his favorites outside of town. I feel sorry for beat writers in a way because everybody seems to have now a national favorite. And beat writers there every day, spending your lives there. How many sunsets have you seen there? Like me. I mean, and yet you let some out-of-town guy get your story. That would make me angry. And if I was a beat guy, I would be punishing people for doing that to me.
Yeah, there have been times I've been very angry. Not lately, though. I'll say that. Rick, thank you so much, man. Tell everybody where to find your stuff.
Well, on Twitter, it's Snide_remarks. And on YouTube, it's Rick Snyder's Washington, which you also see on Twitter and Facebook. But it's a 2-minute show, more or less. I do longer on YouTube sometimes. Trying to make some money, to be honest. The pandemic cost me 4 clients. And I'm still at 106.7 The Fan. But trying to make a little YouTube money and stay in the business for a little longer. I don't know how long, but I'd like to see this team win before I fade away after all these years. I cover football teams. They're a lot of fun to cover, and I'd like to see it again before I walk away. But who knows?
You and me both, dude. Thank you for the time, Rick. Always appreciate it, man. Always enjoy talking to you.
Thanks, Rick.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, there have been times I've been very angry.